So sorry. Okay, the defeat poster was not created. So at the end of the game, we just didn't have the defeat poster created.
That is
Okay,
supreme
I will
confidence,
go.
my man.
I will go on record. No. I will go on record. We just did not have it ready. We will from here on out. We're posting defeat posters. It's fine.
Was there a victory?
That's on us.
Was there a victory
That's on us.
poster ready? All right. Okay. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of The Salt Mine. This is going to be Season 2, Episode number 3, as we get through week number 2 of the NACL regular season. And we are joined today by a special guest near and dear to the community. It is Normology from Mirage Alliance, owner and general manager over of MA. My name is Gordo. I'm joined by Nyarko as well. Keep me accountable and join me in today's discussion alongside Norm. So, Norm, thanks so much for joining us today, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, want to start with the past, and we'll slowly work our way up towards the present here. So, going to be a little bit of a different structure this week, as we're going to try to chat with Norm about Mirage Alliance, where they came from, where they are now, and how we got here. So, I want to talk a little bit about the origins here. I know you guys have established in 2022 or in 2020 on your Twitter bio and everything like that. Feels like you kind of showed up in League, or at least in the NACL circuit around 2022. Wanted to ask a little bit about that. Like, what kind of led to the start of the org? What were your goals with that? And how did you get into the spot where we kind of pick up on this show and in this community in 2022 with Mirage, or in 2023 with Mirage joining NACL qualifiers?
Yeah, sure. So in 2020, we were like a friend group for Overwatch, not League of Legends. Even though I've always been a high-low League of Legends player, I've always hovered around Master GM. So I don't know. It was more of just like a friend group thing that we did for a couple years. We just played Overwatch and competed in the I don't even know what the league's called anymore. But then we did a little bit of a Phoenix Rising League, which was like a throwback. Like with that league, we played a couple teams there. We had like a GM team or a master team. And then we just decided when we heard about the OQs, I was actually from the first ever split in OQ. I was coaching Omega Gaming. We went 2-3. So then I decided I figured I might as well use my org's like name and attempt to make a team of my own. So that's basically just what happened. Besides then, we were kind of inactive for a little bit, besides Overwatch.
Got you. That makes sense. So you guys came in around spring 2023 OQ2 with, that was the Denethor Trickster roster.
Right.
What was your kind of first foray into that? Was that kind of just a test run, or was that, like you said, you kind of just decided F it and that you're going to go for an attempt at NACL qualification, or what kind of led to that team coming together?
We knew that it's impossible to qualify at that stage because remember the golden rule didn't exist then, so we were just a random team that played in OQ2, so it was impossible to qualify for points as well. So we were just doing it for fun. We knew what it was. Like we were just aiming for top 8. We were aiming to upset some teams, maybe eliminate someone that was like a favorite to get in the promotion tournament. We were just playing for kind of basically fun.
That makes sense. So it seems like you had quite the shift in motivation then, or idea as to what you wanted to do, as you then transitioned from spring to summer OQs in 2023, because this is when people started talking about Mirage Alliance as one of these spendier organizations within the realm of Tier 3 amateur, trying to make that break towards NACL, and it definitely paid off. But you talk a little bit about how you transitioned from this past roster to the one that we knew a lot about and saw documented in ACL and NACL qualifiers after that.
Right. Okay, so like I said, in the first ever OQ, we were just a group of friends. Like we were all having fun. We had Psycho and Detro Bali, and like we were just experimenting with players. I knew a little bit about the amateur scene, but not as much as I know now, like with players and such. So we didn't really I didn't really test many rosters, to be honest with you. We were shocked. Like with that 8th place finishing, we were like, wow. I mean, we could do it. Like this is doable. Like these teams are not like insane. So going into the summer, I was aiming for another partner. I got a couple, like 2 or 3 silent partners now. So that increased our spending a lot more than usual. So I saw what was going on at TFT, and I saw Lorm and Dardoch, and I was like, I could start building the brand, with these bigger name players. It's just we're gonna have to spend a bit more money. I mean, that OQ, we were actually profitable. Like on Mirage Alliance, that big roster, shockingly enough, we were profitable by 2,300. Of course, thankfully to ACL and those little tournaments. So it was actually a net positive for the org, which is shockingly.
So is that off of just prize money, I assume, between...
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
We didn't start looking at, this is the first year that we've actually dug in, looking at sponsors. I can't say anything, but there's definitely some things under the wraps for that.
So, want to talk a little bit more about building that initial 2023 team. So, you guys, or I guess the summer 2023 team, the one that you guys ended up qualifying along with. So, is money just the secret there? Where you
money was 100%. I'm gonna be honest. There's no cook. I'm not saying I developed any talent there. I understand tier 3 is about developing talent, but the goal that we had in mind was we wanted into the NACL. And the money basically got us there. If I'm being truthful, it's almost like you could almost joke around and say, I bought a spot. I mean, obviously we had to play the games, but even though I was personally in that promotion tournament when we got knocked down by Lit, I was shaking for a moment. I was a little nervous. I was like, oh no, this might not be possible. But I always thought my main thing was I actually was if this roster does not qualify, then I'm just gonna retire. Because in my head, I cannot put together a more fit roster to promote than them.
And when we talk about developing the roster, I know that you say money's the golden ticket and money is how you got the players that you got. But was there any decision-making process regarding the players that with your golden ticket you decided to acquire? Because I know that behind the scenes, I've heard a lot that Dardoch is the main shot caller, but you also brought in Chad as well. Was there an idea, hey, we want to build a team around Dardoch once you had him on board? Or was this really just piecemeal? You just got whoever you thought the best for each role was, and then you try to figure out how to get together?
Right. We definitely built the team around Dardoch. We were just not expecting to put him support.
Okay.
But then Chad became available, and we thought, in our head, do we want him to play against us in the OQs? Or do we just want to put him on the team as well? And since we felt he was the only person who could really contest Josh in the jungle role, we said, forget it, we'll just put him on the team as well. So then we moved him down there, and Josh got connections with Neo because Neo didn't get picked up for some odd reason. I think, I don't understand how Neo doesn't get picked up, but Neo somehow didn't get picked up there from that TSM debacle, so we picked him back up. And it was the perfect pairing with Josh down bot lane.
Norm, I gotta say, I feel that we're playing with fire here. If the strategy is have enough money to buy the competitors,
listen. I just felt okay. So it sounds terrible, but I feel like the only real cook there, we did go through a lot of mid laners. We were looking at a lot of different mid laners. I think that was the most susceptible role to get picked. But we knew we wanted a Lorem. A Lorem is a solid top laner that we needed. The weak side god is what we needed for that team, especially with Neo. So that one was just automatic. But I wouldn't say money gets you everything. It doesn't. There's still, as I'll explain later on with these other questions, that sometimes money does not simply matter. Just in Tier 3, if you're willing to pay for, this was during the Tier 2 Exodus. So there was a lot of good players just not getting picked up. A lot of players retiring from Tier 2. So we just took advantage of that situation. And we were able to provide them with, with a safe, a decent income. That wasn't going to be $200, $300. So most of them just decided to go for us.
I think that definitely makes sense. And I think that it's really the expectation I think a lot of people would have on the outside looking in, watching that 2023 run that you guys kind of came in. You guys were the requalification super team, one might say, with, Chad coming right down from Chad and Neo both coming right down from Tier 2, and then just rounding that out with some of the top players from Tier 3 already to be able to make that run. Dardoch coming back from collegiate, stuff like that as well. So I think that could get us right into the meat of things, which is going to be the 2024 preseason. So Let's start off with kind of roster number 1, because there's been 2 rosters throughout this 2024 preseason. So you guys qualify in 2023 with the roster that is Alorum, Chad, Sudsy, Neo, Dardoch. What are kind of the first pieces to fall as you start building your roster for the 2024 NACL? It sounded like you and I have talked before that there were some changes that you knew were going to be made.
Right.
So let's talk about that a little bit. What kind of did you know coming in? What did you find out along the way that led to version 2.0 of this Mirage team?
So we knew like Josh wanted to come back to jungle, even though it's funny he's support now. I get it, but he wanted to play jungle. We thought during the combine he was doing like he was doing really really well. Like you could watch those VODs. He was doing insanely well. There wasn't really any contention. So obviously the first piece was Chad, and obviously I didn't want Chad to go to tier 3. I don't believe he belongs there. So I'm glad like when I heard Cincinnati Fear was looking at him and stuff that like that was a good spot for him. Like I believe that's where he belongs. Like I'm glad he's on another tier 2 team. But that move just had to happen for Josh to play jungle. But there's no that was a mutual thing. It was fine.
Okay, so jungle opens up. You guys end up moving Dardoch back over there.
Right.
How do the bot lane changes end up working out?
So we knew Neo was going on vacation. Neo told us off the rip like so that put us in like a weird spot with this 4 out of 7 rule already, like because we wanted to fix some other positions. But yeah, Neo going to Vietnam until March is like it was like a huge thing. So now we're like we have to find a whole new bot lane.
Okay, so to keep track of where everybody is sitting, then you have Chad off the team as you're moving Dardoch to jungle, so that's going to cost you 1 out of your 7. Neo is going to cost you a 2nd. So how then you keep it's Maniac on the bench, right, and Neo as well,
he's
who
our
are holding
cheerleader,
down.
correct.
Yeah, who are holding down 2 of those spots. Dardoch makes 3. Alorum makes 4. So assuming you're keeping Alorum, you then have your 4.
Right.
How does this new bot lane then end up getting selected? Where do you guys look for scouting? How did you end up with Scoooped and Prismal initially?
So Prismal's been talking with me for like months. Okay, I'm the reason he like came out of retirement. Like he'll let you know that. So he was looking to coming back, but he wanted to come back as the ADC. But when Scoooped first tried out, he was doing it like before the whole new season. He was a monster. So Prismal was like, I'm willing to switch to support. Like this guy's playing out of his mind. So that was just like, and we were going after other bot lanes, like the Supernova bot lane, the AoE bot lane. The amount of money that these teams are paying for these players is unfathomable. Like it's unprofitable completely. There's just simply nothing we can do. And with this constraints of the players that we already have on our team, like certain players wanted to play with other certain players. For example, Supernova Diamond wants to play with Phasal. So that means we can't get those 2. They're willing to go to a different bidder because they didn't want to play with Alarm. Stuff like that was happening, so we were running low on options. We were scrambling. Like for example, AoE, like for Breezy and what's the ADC's name? Wixie. Like let's just say that monthly bill is brutal. Like I'm telling you, like there's a team like for instance, like I think Supernova, even if they go first, they're losing like 10 grand. Like their budgets are so high, and it's just I can't compete. Even with the Mirage Alliance, like the joking how I was dominating the OQ budgets, it's a different world up here. And these I don't like it just doesn't make sense for me financially like at all to go as high as these teams went for these players. So that we had a lot of constraints there. Even with I felt like we had a great budget. I mean, we obviously we can talk about the actual numbers after, but I felt like we had a great budget, and it's just getting blown out of the water. Like I don't know, and which makes no sense to me because I thought the ecosystem was gonna go down, because none recent promoting teams we don't get the $30,000 that the other teams got last year. We don't. We just get the normal Riot's stipends eventually. So I thought that all the salaries would go down, but they all went up. So I don't know. So basically, that we landed on them because we were running so low on options in the bot lane that, well, not taking away anything from them. Obviously, Prismal was always going to be in the bot lane for us, but like with Scoooped and stuff, we were just running out of options, and we had such short time to make roster decisions. So that's what happened with that. And then for Sudsy, I mean, I think he's a great guy. He's going to promote probably TFT, or at least get him to the promotion tournament. He's insane for tier 3. But in tier 2, there's just certain flaws. Like, there's just certain things. Like I said, a great guy. I wanted to keep him on as a sub, actually, because I didn't really know. But he'd rather be on a starting tier 3 than a sub spot in tier 2.
So just to push a little bit, particularly on the aspect of Scoooped, because I think that was one of the things that kind of catapulted Mirage Alliance back into NACL discourse really hard as of late.
Yeah.
Would you say that the motivating reason why the roster transition had to happen was that you guys couldn't come to an agreement on payment?
No.
Okay. It was other mitigating factors?
No. Payment had nothing to do with any of this.
Okay.
I was just saying to get these other 80 carries that have been in these other supports, the budget just went so high that like it's just not possible. Like, I'm not paying 5,000 a month for someone. I just can't.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not possible. The only thing with Scoooped was when we like I said, it was just a time frame. We had such a short time frame to have him on the team. It was 2 weeks. And it just wasn't working out. There's no I think he's a great player. There's no love lost there. It just was not working out on this team.
Okay. I guess it's just interesting that you then have to take the gamble to then find a new bot lane with an even shorter time frame by swapping on.
I agree with you, but in our head, you have to remind we're putting Prismal back on his main role where he's the happiest. So him going back to 80 carry and Josh was just he was willing. Like, to play support one more time, and then of course Will was open for some reason. I don't know why Will never got picked up by anyone, but Will was just available, so it made sense to bring him in.
So wanna push on the Scoooped thing a little more if we can, just to say, I think that's what a lot of people are going to be curious about. Surely, is so the roster comes together initially. It sounds like, yeah, Prismal's excited to play with Scoooped. He's doing really, really well in the preseason. So is it kind of as you begin scrimming on the new season that you guys began to encounter issues? Like what? And obviously, what you can share and what you can't is up to you and Mirage Alliance. But what do you feel like was kind of the big driving force there for why that first roster wasn't working out in your mind?
Yeah, it was just the scrimming was it just kept piling on, and like I said, one of the main things I hate about running an organization is kicking a player at all. Like, I hate doing it. I try not to do it. Like looking on the comments on Twitter, you might think they're just Twitter things, but like genuinely that like sucked really bad. Like, I hate looking at that stuff. Like, I hate being hated. Like, the whole goal of me ever joining this stuff was to have fans, have people that enjoy us, but always being the enemy feels terrible. Like, it just genuinely feels terrible. Like, I almost wanted, there was 2 weeks ago that I was willing to I'm done. I'm down to sell my position and just leave. Like, it just comes to a bad point. Like, I hated it. Like, I did not want to kick Scoooped, but in this environment, it is sink or it's swim or sink. Like, there's nothing you can do. If a player it sucks. Like, we can't. There's no room for development when demotion exists. I cannot give Scoooped a couple weeks. Yes, sure, we're 0-2, so it's it doesn't look good that I'm saying that, but I can't give a guy a bunch of weeks and then maybe have to make that roster swap halfway through the season. The thing that hurt that felt the worst was, of course, he's not able to get on an OQ team. The time frame was terrible. But at that point, I was so drained from the team that there's nothing else I could do. I just had to do it, and I knew what it was gonna be like. I knew how everyone was gonna react, and especially Scoooped, all the fans. I get that. But there was my hands were tied, and I just had to rip the Band-Aid off.
So how would you respond? I think I've seen critique that I think some would leverage the critique that it's a if after 2 weeks you guys aren't willing to continue, that links back to a shortfall in scouting or a shortfall
I
in the
agree.
initial roster
I'll be
building.
the first one to say, yeah, I 100% agree. I made the error. 100%. I put that blame on myself. I 100% made the wrong analyzation of the player. That's 100% on me. That was a scouting problem and up the upper management. That's 100% my fault.
All right, fair enough there. I guess no.
Yeah, no, I'll 100% take blame for that. I agree. Like with Colomer's point that I saw on Twitter, I 100% agreed with that. It was just that's what it came down to. It was a bad scouting
Okay.
Yeah, I
and
appreciate the
analyzation of the player.
Yeah, I appreciate the transparency on that point, and it really does kind of suck that you get sucked into that Twitter vortex of because people are assuming that they can now just dunk on you for every subsequent
Right.
loss within NACL on a competitive level. It just kind of becomes this very difficult position to be in as a team that I think most people realistically, even if you had kept Scooped on, weren't going to be placing in the top half of power rankings.
Right. We're 7th, 8th, no matter what. Like,
Yeah.
It just sucks. Like I said,
Mhm.
I don't want to keep acting like it. Like I want to keep this like hard exterior out, but like when I'm seeing like we start losing and all you see is hashtag free scoop spamming on Twitch, it hurts, man. Like I'm sorry,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like I'm trying, man. It's a tough industry. Like I said, what's my alternative? I demote.
Mm.
Then what? We lose like thousands and thousands of dollars. Like most players like once you demote, I'm not gonna lie, it doesn't look good. So like, do I really want to sink the whole ship? Like I don't. It financially just doesn't make any sense.
Hmm.
But like I said, my heart goes out to Scoop. I'm sorry. Like it's just it just is a terrible situation.
Yeah. So do you want to you referenced the NACL roster lock rules there. For those who are listening that might not know, the NACL roster lock was the 17th, correct?
Yeah,
That
it was 2 days. It was 2 days before.
yeah, that Scooped ended up dropped,
Yeah,
and then yeah, at OQs and NACL both starting the same day on the
right.
20th, which yeah would have been just a couple of days later. So did you guys have that information from the beginning, or I'm kind of curious on some of the background there because that is a very
On the
short
roster lock.
turnaround. Is that just yeah? Was the roster lock like? Did some of those deadlines change, or were NACL and NACLQ roster deadlines like always just
So
days apart?
so we were really confused because I think the roster lock was like it was announced just like 2 weeks before or something. I'm not 100% sure, but we were confused because Maryville was never locking their roster, and they were hosting tryouts during the lock. So like I was confused if it was a deadlock or like I don't know. I didn't have a lot of like understanding what was going on. I just knew what the date was, so that like 2 weeks in advance. So like I said, people will say that like that I could have like kicked him a week earlier. But then I'm no matter what would have happened, they would have said the same exact thing. It would have just been like, "Oh, they kicked him after a week. They didn't really give him a chance."
I know you were referencing the purchasing power of a lot of these other NACL teams
Yeah,
as
it's
we
so bad.
were all, yeah, when we were all just building rosters. How much transparency or how much cross communication from team to team is there in these
There's
weeks
not.
leading up to the
It's just
roster
bidding.
lock?
It's just bidding wars,
It's just bidding wars, and so you just kind of hear
and
the grapevine
you'll
when people are
know
paying.
and it's like who's paying it.
That's fair. Okay.
Like I said, there's a certain roster that got re-put into. I mean, a certain organization that got put back into the League of Legends NACL teams, and they had the biggest budget.
Hmm.
So you've been outwardly critical of the 4 out of 7 roster rule before, at least a little bit, and the struggles
Yeah,
that's given you for roster building. Would you be interested in discussing that a little bit? Like, what do you think would be uh, an appropriate roster continuity rule, or do you think there should be
I
one at
just
all?
I just feel like that for newly promoted rosters, if they do not have like especially like obviously it wasn't as bad for Mirage because we already had like these high tier players. But it comes down to like when these other like when tier 3 orgs first promote, it is very very unfair like to keep their survivability is very very low. Like I'm like these teams that have the teams that like that just promoted since they're being roster locked, they're locked with certain players that might just not be up to tier 2. But do I believe that they should have the security? That like it's a tough one, but I just feel like when you have certain locks like that and you're trying to compete, especially maybe it was just this offseason, like when you're trying to compete with these teams that have all this buying power and they have 5 open slots. A lot of these players only want to play with certain players. So when I have somebody like Alorm will be the one to admit this, like he was like people were looking at him like he was just not tier 2, which is crazy because if you check the stats, my man is performing. But like there's just certain players that don't want to play with him. There are certain players that didn't want to play with Sudsy. So we have to make these weird decisions because certain players won't play with certain players. But then if I'm like, say I'm like Supernova and I can offer you all 5 of the spots, you can play with whoever you want. So stuff like that, like then they get the control. So then I just get who's left.
Do you have kind of an inkling about what you would do in the position of the NACL to change either roster lock structure or demotion promotion structure? Just asking. It doesn't have to be like you have a concrete.
Hard, right? Because you want to give these players the chance to prove themselves in tier 2. You want to, but then in this weird environment, like I believe it's sustainable down the road when when the environment's more flattened. But because of how it is now, it just doesn't feel like as good. Like it just feels like you're locked on certain players, no matter what. And like I said, certain players only want to play with certain players. So then you have to cross this one off because he won't play with him. But then you have to keep the 4 out of 7. So you have to have this player or this player. But then they can only play with him, or I mean they'll play with him, but they won't play with him. So like I have to go through this like whole list of players that will only want to play with this player or that player. So that's like most of these players that like, for instance, Sudsy, I'm not removing him because he was performing bad. I'm removing him because other players don't want to play with him. So then it limits for example, it'll limit my options completely. So more players were more willing to play with Alorm than Sudsy, for example. So like that's what it was coming down to is I'm just have to go down the list and choose my battle on who I want.
Got it.
So it's just like an advantage. I don't know. Like I said, like these other works just have the advantage that they can play anybody with anyone. So if there's a friend group that wants to play all together, nothing I can do. I can't overpower my own rule. But like I said, I still I believe giving those players a chance is good. It's just in this environment now that we're like the 10 teams demotion, like it seems impossible.
I think a lot of people have advocated for it being starting roster based, either 3 of 5, 4 of 5, something like that. I don't think that really addresses your concerns here too much.
That's even worse.
Do you think that would?
That's even worse. If I'm not allowed to put my them in sub spots, that's even worse. Because look at my situation, for example. If it's 4 out of 5 starting roster, right? Neil leaves because he's going on vacation. So that means I have to keep all 4 of them, no matter what. And I'm just only open for AD carry. So what happens if I don't have this superstar? Like I said, I think we have the best OQ team possible. So what if I don't have all those players? Like, what if I have let's say we had a miracle run, maybe example Lit, they had a miracle run. What if Plux wouldn't have played right according to at the end of that tournament? For example, Plux was going to he said he wasn't going to play. Okay, so now they only can pick a support. So now they're locked with those players no matter what. What if, as an organization, what if, certain players... I don't know. I feel like it's just hard. Because now, Lit has to go up against teams like FlyQuest, Academy, or DS... teams like that. And you're just like, oh. they have a 15K budget.
So then
I'm locked on 4 players.
So what would you think of, or at least are you conceptualizing your goal then for this split is you just need to retain your spot for summer and
Yes.
unlock yourself from that restriction?
I don't really like the restriction thing isn't a problem, but it's more about I want to retain my spot because if like it's like if you go if you only play one split, there is just no way. I've done math every single way. There is just no way you're making you're not profitable. You're losing money. It was a terrible adventure. Just simply. So obviously, I would love to play the full year, and especially with this new stuff they're announcing for Tier 2. There's talks of this international tournament, stuff like that. I feel like Tier 2 is aiming we're slowly but surely becoming sustainable, and I would love to be a team to be in that sustainability.
Yeah. So how would you respond to the argument that the initial qualification is done by the players. The players within the org, the players are owed that opportunity in the NACL. Is kind of the underlying cause for the roster continuity rule, right? So, I mean, what would you say to the mindset that you really do need to try to get the spot, you have to keep the roster, you have to defend the spot before you really unlock that kind of full roster building potential? Do you think that's
it's weird, right?
Too difficult to achieve, or please?
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a weird situation. It's hard to ever have a perfect answer for this, because I could say as an org, I would love to, they're basically, it's like a mercenary team. Like, for instance, with Mirage, we'd consider like a mercenary team. You're just buying a bunch of talent to promote you into the thing. So you could say financially, that's what should have been the motivation. But my team, we were doing something way different than other teams were doing. So I don't think, and it's also not duplicatable. We were doing, in promotion tournaments and stuff, we were doing, oh, you win this game, you make this, we were doing incentives. So I don't really know. I feel like their payment should have been enough, but I also understand that OQ teams aren't paying their players anything. Maybe the top 4 are paying $200, $300. So is that really worth it? But also, I don't know. I feel like a lot of Tier 3 teams are going to have this problem where if they're not a university team, when they get promoted, where's the money coming from? So do you really want to lock those players into a bad contract? They're not making a lot of money? Because what if if you're locked on my team, right? Say the 4 out of 5 rule, for instance. Okay, they have to play for me. But what if I don't have a lot of money? And I can't pay them anything that's worth it. So now they're just playing for free, basically, and then hoping that we don't get demoted. So we're just playing for fun, but they don't want that for their career. They want to play on the best team that they can. So it's just a weird balance. There's never a perfect answer for this promotion tournament thing, at all, because there's the argument that you could be, that you're the player and you want your shot, which is good, and you probably you earned the spot. But I feel like the also thing is, if you're performing that well, you should be able to maintain your spot. But then it comes down to a weird situation like I just had, where I'm not removing players because they're playing terrible or they're playing bad. I'm just playing it because I have to try to build a roster of players that want to play with other players. So it's just this, I don't know, it's just a weird balance. But that's just my perspective. I don't know. It's impossible, I think, to give you a good answer for that.
I think that's fair. Does that answer your question, Nyarko, or do you have?
Yeah, I was just going to remark that it kind of seems like, from your perspective, Norm, that there's this almost tier 2.5 that accounts for the bottom part of the NACL, where these newly qualified teams just simply do not have the same kind of financial leverage that either teams that have secret backers that are able to provide a lot of money, or are just established names that don't have the worry of being demoted, kind of become new goal teams for the people that are being brought into the NACL. And that is the angle for each individual player's stability in the long run, because there's no assurance that as the 5-man squad that qualified, you're going to be able to stave off demotion.
Right.
And so it does kind of feel that, by the way you're describing it, the dynamic is that while players definitely still can find themselves in really awkward situations, the orgs themselves are also the ones that get really hit by the current structure of the NACL, where you have to look at the financials and you have to make decisions that are optically terrible, because it is the case that you can't find another way to stave off demotion, and staving off demotion is the only way that you can find a semblance of profitability or reliability with the brand. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's definitely a tough position to be in.
One follow-up question based on what you said in there, because you made reference to players being obligated to play with you. I believe that's not the case. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, so I think
you're correct.
Yeah, so it's you're obligated to field the players, but the players are not obligated to play for you.
Right.
Oh, so can they opt out of being part of your 4-7?
Opt out, I believe so. But that part doesn't matter, because if they opt out, it doesn't mean... So, for instance, Chad opted out of playing for Mirage to play for Cincinnati Fear.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't matter. I still have to field 4 out of 7.
So what happens if 4 players all do that?
Right. So then I'm open, I believe.
Okay.
But that will never happen.
Sure. I was mostly curious.
No player is just not going to play tier 2. So, like I said, like, Chad opted out. Sudsy opted out, technically, I guess.
Yeah. Well, because the question is, it seems like it seems like you could get into, like, imagine Sajed is still playing for Lit when they promote, and then he gets the Fly Challengers offer. Not hard to imagine that kind of scenario befalls another player on Lit, and now suddenly they're outside of being able to fulfill the rule. I was just curious if you had any insight.
Well, no, they'll still fill the rule because they have a sub.
Sure. Imagine they don't have subs. Imagine that they were running
saying,
those
like,
subs.
No matter, like, it could be it's a minus. Like I said, it's minus these players, but it doesn't count minus the rule for me. If you have 4 players, no matter what, you have to field them.
Okay.
Like, if you have 4 available players, no matter what, you have to field them. So say Alorm opted out. That means I have to find I have to play Chad. Like, there's just no choice.
Unless they both opt out and go elsewhere.
Unless they both opt out.
Okay.
Well, no, because then I would have to field. I'd have to field Maniac.
Sure.
I have
or
to
at least
field no matter what. I have to field 4 players.
Mm-hmm.
I have to have 4. So until 5, or no, it's 4 that have to drop down. Then I can start going against the thing. But then I'll have 3 on the starting or 3.
Interesting.
Players.
All right. I'm curious to see how exceptions work for that rule, right? Because imagine, imagine 3 of your players get called up, and you have, out of your 4 remaining, you have both Chad and Maniac. Do you have to field both Chad and Maniac, even though they play the same position?
I think I can play him, put one as a sub.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I suppose that makes sense.
Then
yeah,
2 out of 7.
You would have to have like a ridiculous amount of subs at the same position, I suppose, to get yourself into that position. But
I mean, I'm famous for that one. We have 4 junglers on my team.
That is true. You do have 4 junglers on your team. So fair enough. Well, we spent a lot of time talking about that, and I appreciate it. I think it was good to get into an in-depth conversation about roster building there. Do you want to talk about the last couple of changes you guys ended up making? You had Will and Svenskeren right before the season starts on off. Curious as how you guys found your way into those players. You said it was crazy to you that Will was teamless. Surprising to me as well. I mean, it's awesome to see Will in a spring split for the first time in his career so far. So how do those acquisitions kind of end up playing out?
Well, to be fair, though, we were scrambling for 24 hours. Yeah. Like, as you saw on Twitter, once again, I was getting attacked by a tier 3 org. And, we don't got to talk about that. But, so we were scrambling. Svenskeren was more of like, that was a formality. He's been coaching for us for like a week prior to that. So he didn't just hop in. He's been coaching for a while with us, especially when we knew he didn't get an LCS offer, which is also crazy because he should be an assistant coach on an LCS team. But yeah, I mean, he was a no-brainer. My players respect a coach, well, like a player that like a decorated player that became a coach, because like there's undoubtedly that he knows what he's doing. So we just had to give him basically the test run to see if he can, because we knew he could coach jungle. We know that, right? But we don't know, can he coach top lane? Can he coach, you know what I mean? Like, can he coach as a whole? And then with his analyst, not his analyst work, I'm sorry, he's like assistant coaching over at uh, Golden Guardians, and then he coached with Jack in C9 for a little bit. So it was just a no-brainer for him. And then of course, like Will, we were just fielding our options. We were looking at supports. There was a couple players that could have came, like we were thinking, and just to leave Dardoch jungle, but Will seemed like the safest and the most like realistic to be a competitive team in the NACL.
Well, happy to see him in the league as well, and glad that you were able to share that kind of insight about the decision making that ended up coming on through for this season. I do want to talk about the season so far, but before we get there, there is one more kind of topic that's been floating around NACL circles over the course of the last week or so, and a lot of that's on NACL visibility and raids coming in from LCS.
Yeah,
It's been enough drama, and you know what, Norm, you've tweeted about it as well. So
I made a tweet about it.
You did make a tweet about it.
Honestly, that was not a good thing. I regret that tweet, but I'll stand on business for it, I guess.
All right. Okay. Well, good. It's honestly, this is a better conversation now that you regret the tweet. So let's see how.
Okay. Well, no, I don't regret. As in, I do believe that the LCS should raid the NACL every single day. I don't believe that, like I said, like for that instance, and it sucks because of the way our team is scheduled. It just feels like they're targeting bigger teams only for the raids. Like TLC versus Fly Fam. Or Fly Academy, sorry. Fly Fam. But
yeah, to take a step back for a second. Yeah, so source of the drama for anybody who's not perma on tier 2, tier 3 league Twitter is the LCS is currently on a schedule of raiding the NACL after LCS ends on Saturday, and then raiding a player in the LCS on their personal stream on Sunday. Folks, Norm included, many feel that it should be raiding the NACL each and every day. There's been some alternating opinions on that as well.
Well, okay.
Go ahead.
But what's crazy to me, though, is the viewership isn't that much different. So I'm guessing they just click right off. And I understand the goal. Like, talking to Whoopley about this afterwards, after I made my tweet. Because, I don't know. Sometimes I just spew off and say something that's not needed. And it made, League Twitter all question it. It's fine. Like, the goal is we want to get, viewers to sustain and watch the NACL. So I understand that it makes more sense to have them on teams like, when DSG is playing or when, Fly is playing, because you've seen these teams, you recognize the teams, you recognize the content creators. That makes sense. And how the schedule works is it's off of viewership from the team, but with up and coming like NACL orgs, like Lit, Mirage, they don't have any analytics on us. So we'll, by default, we'll get pushed down the schedule. Like, so the schedule's built with a purpose of viewership. So I understand that part. And it's not up to the NACL when the LCS raid us. But I just felt like where my animosity came from was I love watching tier 3. Like, I might have built this non-tier 3 team for tier 3, but I enjoy watching like every tier 3 player. Like, I just love watching those games. But now I don't get to watch it because the LCS wants the viewership, but then the LCS wants the viewership, and it's not they don't always directly throw it to the NACL. So now, what is the point of not doing tier 3 if you're not gonna help your tier 2?
I mean, I definitely agree that the lack of tier 3 viewership is an issue. I don't think I was talking with Nyarko before we started recording that one-ish week in, I don't think this methodology of doing tier 3 is sustainable. Like, this is going to change, I think, for summer.
My devil's advocate for that is, to be fair, these players, like, you can say that, obviously streaming's good, right? And they wouldn't be seen. But these players are in the trenches playing for $6,300. Let's not pretend that they're not getting anything. Like, they're not just playing for fun. This is serious competition to see if they can go up to the NACL. So I could see how it could do the reverse effect and make these players that are down there actually serious for the game. They're not a content team. For example, Cold. Like, they were, they were playing for, they were like a viewership, more of like a team. They weren't as serious about the competition. They were good, don't get me wrong. We almost lost to them. But like I'm saying, like, it creates more of a, I'm playing because I want to be the best. I want to promote one of these teams. So the competition could be better down there. Or it could do the vice versa, and people could not care anymore, and it could be just worse teams having fun.
Yeah, I think I saw Arsh made a very good point there as well, though, that like in theory the NACL should be looking to attract more creator-based teams like DSG. Like they should want a Moist. I know Tyler 1 is previously it's leaked that Tyler 1 had some interest for a bit. Like they want teams associated with personalities to play in Tier 3. It feels like that gets disincentivized when there's no way of watching your team's journey towards promotion. So I definitely agree with that. To pivot back over towards the impact specifically towards NACL, to play devil's advocate there, I don't think the intent of the raid is to bump Dokla's pocketbook, right? I think it's to try to remedy the lack of engagement with players, which Travis Gafford's been talking about this for forever, and I'm inclined to agree with him that I think a big detriment to the LCS in the last several years has been the rate of player turnover being just astronomical, particularly in the imports section of things. So I think the goal underlying that is to try to get a few more eyes on these players. But I do also the question that underlies me on that is, so you're doing one raid on one player per week. There are 6 weeks. So are 2 teams just not getting any players rated? Are those teams cool with it? That's a weird underlying question that I kind of have as well. Is how are they choosing who to raid, and how are they justifying to the other franchises that they're just giving freebies to a few teams?
For Dokla, for example, he was doing an Ask Me Anything, so that's why they rated his. I don't know how that really works, but like I said, after my discussion with Whoopley, I regretted the tweet because I understand now more of how the viewership really works. And to be fair, at the end of the day, the raid doesn't matter as much as we think it does. So I will on record say that publicly my tweet was incorrect. And the way the viewership truly works and how co-streaming viewers work, at the end of the day, the raid isn't what matters. It's more of, can we get the LCS viewers to be locked in on the NACL? And for that, it doesn't matter what the day is. I believe it matters the more legitimacy of the teams. So example, the DSG, you'd want to raid them that day, so you would put them purposely on the schedule on Saturday for the first game. Because what are the LCS viewers going to be more interested in? They do, to be honest, they're not going to care as much about Mirage Alliance as DSG. So if we want the player to be a true NACL fan, we have to optimize the raids to where it's showcasing the better teams with the more eyes on them. So in that aspect, like I said, I disagree with myself on Twitter, and I think this makes the most sense. Now, would I love that the raids happen every single time? Yes, but the way that it's set up is it's nothing that we can do or a community can force on, because it doesn't really, like I said, at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter.
You touch on Twitter just a little bit more really quick before I think we dive back into NACL and performance on that front. I just kind of wanted to ask about Mirage Alliance's tweeting protocol, because I kind of find the way that you guys interact with other teams kind of interesting. I know that Wildcard is clapping back really hard after.
Okay, you know what's crazy?
But okay, what's up?
Okay, no, I don't like when teams do that. Okay. I like when teams talk there in the start before the series even happens. Do not come after you 2-0 us and quote retweet. come on. At least say, you know what I mean? Like, I want to create
I get
want
you.
to create some like tension, like some rivalries. Say something before the games.
Okay, I
Like,
get you.
that's all I ask
Yeah.
for all NACL teams that are listening.
This is a
Talk your before the game.
This is an all-time trash talk debate. So like this is this is had all the time in every sport. So I get you.
But to build on that, one of the concerns that I've heard regarding Mirage Alliance when I was just kind of, chilling with friends talking about NACL was that you guys talk to trash, but then I'm not really seeing like GGs. I'm not seeing like post-game like summaries, like what was the matchup, like was it 0-2, 2-0, 1-1, something like that. So is that something that you guys are planning, or is that just not in your
sorry. Okay, the defeat poster was not created. So at the end of the game, we just didn't have the defeat poster created.
That is supreme confidence.
I will go on record. No. I will go on record. We just did not have it ready. We will from here on out. We're posting defeat posters. It's fine.
Was there a victory poster ready? All right, okay.
Maybe. But that's also not true. We definitely did say GG's to Cincinnati Fear. Okay. And wild card. There was GG's being posted from the tweet. Now we just did not post the defeat posters. I agree. That was on our bad. That's not intentional. We're not just like, oh, we lost. We're not gonna say anything. You know what I mean?
Okay, I get you. Yeah.
Fair enough. Fun to chat about. I think we can leave Twitter for a little bit there. Although one other thing that I do see in this discourse that I'm curious on both of you guys' thoughts about. I've been seeing a lot of complaints that like, hey, we're screwed, like as a justification for why LCS should always raid NACL, we're screwing our own schedule for LCS because NACL doesn't start until LCS ends.
Sure.
Yeah, and I know that's very tough for people in the Eastern time zone, but surely it is. I mean, at least my take here is surely it is to NACL's benefit to do a rolling start when LCS ends, right? Like that is not a sacrifice NACL is making. That is NACL looking out for itself. No, like regardless of whether they were even allowed, regardless of whether it's their choice. Surely, given the choice, NACL teams and if you guys were to form a conglomerate, surely you would choose to start after LCS ends.
No, I 100% would vote
rather than overlap, right?
Yeah, Gordo, everybody watching NACL is enough of a degenerate league gremlin to stay up to watch NACL if they really wanted to, right?
Like,
and for the players that get to complain about the times, you're paid to play. You're paid.
Also, to be fair, it is getting nasty for Eastern time zone players though, because it was just announced today that LCS is starting 1 hour later.
That is true.
Yes, but to be fair, those games end faster than we think they do.
That's true.
On average, we've started an hour earlier than we're scheduled.
It's fair.
So
also, I've heard that NACL teams are already screaming at like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. anyway, so I don't know how much.
We have a weird gremlin schedule. We're like we'll schedule like today. We played at 5 p.m. to like 8 against C9. Like I don't know what's going on, which actually is an advantage. So because we're on like these gremlin times that we can do night blocks, LCS teams are way more willing to do night blocks against NACL teams than normal. So we get more scrims that way.
Good stuff.
With the bigger teams. So.
Yeah.
It's fun. So has that been happening a lot this season? Has there been, to your knowledge, has there been more or less LCS cross NACL stuff this year versus previous years?
I don't know the stats on previous years, but we're getting like 2 each week. So
nice.
It's good stuff.
On average, it's not bad. I don't know.
Okay.
And obviously it depends on the NACL org. No, not really though. Because we're like 7th, 8th, so
I wasn't gonna say it, but
no, it's fine. I understand. Like we're trying.
All right, well, let's move into the 2024 season so far before we wrap on up here. So, obviously, from a Mirage perspective, 0-2-1-4 start.
Not bad.
Yeah, how are you guys feeling? How are you, from a GM and owner perspective, feeling about the first couple of weeks, and how do you feel like things are going as scrims go on and as you start to move towards the rest of the season?
Like I said, I don't care about the losses. I just right now I don't know. Mentally, I just don't I can't deal with what they say after. The loss is fine. Like I'm okay with the loss, but I do not need to keep saying I get it. The hashtag free Scoooped. Oh, Scoooped would never have died there. Like, dude, Like, I feel like nobody understands. People think I just wrote this guy off and I was like, leave. You know what I mean? Like, like that Woody meme that they said, I don't want to play with you anymore, and they dropped them or whatever.
They did drop that meme on you, man. They did.
Yeah, I know. And every time I like we made that fire thing to Cincinnati Fear, they tweeted, "Oh, contract scares." Listen, like I said, that stuff emotionally like drains me. Like I hate cutting players. Like previous OQs, like my first ever OQ, it sucked to like because I thought I was gonna build into the next roster with Detro. That shit sucked when I had to kick him. Like there's just like I can't do it. Like that's my worst like part of my job. I think is removing any player for anything. So every time I keep getting reminded consistently on Twitter, and it's like I understand. All right, everyone's upset. I get it. But like there's just, like I said, there's just I had to take a couple days off the other week. Like dude, it emotionally just drains me. I don't know. But that's a whole different personal problem that I got to deal with. But like so that's what sucks about those losses, basically, in summary.
That's fair.
Dealing with,
That's fair.
like,
Where do you guys? Where do you
course.
feel like Mirage kind of belongs in the power rankings based on? Do you think? Do you think you guys are better than you've shown so far? Do you think you guys are?
I think we're better than we showed for sure. I think we're scaling. Remember, Josh put down the roll again, so he's playing it up again. Do we not remember what happened in OQ2 when he started playing? He played the spot for about a month. Yeah. We dropped one singular game, and it was because of Lorm's internet blew out.
All right. Yeah. Picking up from there. Yeah. So feeling like you guys are going to scale later on as Dardoch gets better into the role. I think that certainly makes sense. So you guys have played against both Wildcard and Maryville, both of whom
Cincinnati Fear.
Cincinnati Fear. You haven't played Maryville yet, but you played against Wildcard. They are on a really hot start. Maryville is also off to a very hot start. How are we feeling about where these teams have ended up versus where I think a lot of teams would have had them already?
Well, I think Wildcards make sense. Wildcard is slew. I mean, They've been playing together for months.
Minus 30. But yeah, so do you think it's for both of them, do you think it's kind of the collegiate
they're just better.
Start?
Yeah, they just understand. Like, no, I don't believe that for Maryville. But I believe that for Slew. They're just locked in. I mean, they understand later game team fights. Like, you can beat them. Like, for example, like, we're winning our lanes, but they were doing better in macro. They just understand how to play with each other way better than most teams. Because, everyone's still getting a feel for each other. They played with each other for like a month, opposed to like 6 months. So, yeah, Slew's just going to, that team, obviously, I think it's criminal, like, ratings in general. I think all of them are criminal. But, that's what they're doing. Like, when teams start picking up, maybe they'll do worse. But, Dox is even doing good in his role, which was a surprise to me. So,
Dox is really jamming on those, like, Senna lanes, too, where he gets to just play mid laners from the bot lane.
I can't believe, I just don't understand how Senna gets picked, like, is allowed to be picked like that, though. But, Fearless Draft, he can only play it once. But for Maryville, no. Come on, let's be real, guys. When the roster got dropped, everybody is looking at their ratings, and they're like, okay, we're just joking. They're a top 4 team. Come on. Like, just point blank. Like, they triple upgraded. They put Niles back top lane. Like, where's their weakness? I don't know. Sparex is back mid, playing with, like, Yuki. Like, okay. UG. So, what do we, like, where's their weakness? Zyko, a great support. We're looking at him for Mirage. If Maryville was, but, like, of course, how Maryville's tryouts work is their players are all, like, locked. Like, even Kachu. So, like I said, they triple upgraded. They're insane. It's a good team. Definitely someone to fear for, like, for sure.
Definitely fair. I feel like I think a lot of people's perspective is that Scary Jerry and Zyko look like way better as a duo this split than they did last split. Do you think?
I think Zyko's improved a lot.
Yeah,
I think Zyko looks better too. Yeah. Like, it's not even just Scary Jerry. I think Zyko's really becoming like a feared support. Like, if he's not in Maryville 1 year, he will be on a top NACL team. I think he's very consistent. Nothing but praise for that guy. I think he's really good.
Yeah, Norm. Right now, Norm, I am suffering because I was the Scary Jerry Zyko truther like last year. And
Oh.
then this time around on power rankings, I was super down on Maryville, even though I love Maryville as a team.
Right.
And now this is the time where they're like powering up.
Like I said,
So-
to be fair, all your guys' ratings are wrong because you're rating 3 different players.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Our,
So
our
you didn't
MA
know
and
anything.
our MA and MU ratings do not count.
yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, right. So, I mean, you were rating a whole different team. But yeah, I don't know. I'm a Zyko truther. I think that guy is he is good. That guy is good. Like when he was in our when we were running trials with him and stuff, this guy, his comms, he's just a good player. Someone to keep an eye out for sure. To even go to the next level. Like he's growing really well.
I do agree.
And
with
I don't know
that
if that's
on
from
Zyko.
coaching or it's just him putting in the work. I don't know. So
Yeah, he's been super impressive as well. We're already kind of crested over an hour because we spent a lot of time talking about preseason, which is awesome.
yeah.
Do you want to take 1 second? Any other big kind of standouts from NACL so far that have stuck out to you that you would want to chat about here?
Like players or what do you mean?
Anything. Players, teams, overperformances, underperformances, predictions for coming weeks that don't have to do with Mirage Alliance.
I don't even know the matchups. Who's playing who?
Well, so for
I'll
just next week, it is
yeah,
going to be...
I'll go 100% on this one. By the way.
Okay.
Just
So
watch.
for next week, it is going to be because we're officially starting our 6-game era, our 6-match era. It's going to be
Yes,
TLDSG and Mirage Lit on day 1.
Okay, DSG wins that one.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Mirage wins that next one too.
Okay.
We'll get our dubs.
Yeah. All right. Fly Challengers Fear is on Saturday.
Fly's going 3-0. Okay.
Yeah. Nyarko,
That roster. Hey, by the way, that roster is nasty.
Fly
I
Challengers
promise you
one?
right now, they will be in the finals. They will be in the finals 100%. With who? Actually.
Well,
But-
I said this last split, so I'm gonna hold my tongue. You know.
Nah,
Yeah, but all I'm saying, maybe they'll lose in semifinals. Maybe there'll be an upset.
yeah. I'm willing to jump on the FlyQuest train as well at this point. I think Quad. I think like Quad was the only kind of minor question mark, and I guess like if you think Sajed's gonna like panic because he's on tier 2 now,
No,
but it's
I knew
not even a
no,
different
I knew-
environment. It's like
You have Chime down there.
Yeah,
He's like
he's fine.
They'll level each other out just fine.
Agree, and Quad seems to have I think the only real concern was does Quad have the NA boom, right? Does he get to North
Right,
America and play
and they
solo
have
queue
Serdi,
on
right?
60 ping? And yeah, they do have Serdi as
And
well.
that guy's just
He's
shouldn't even be here.
that guy's in the LCS. That guy's I
that
I
guy
said
should
when we
not
first
be
started,
here.
this team has 3 LCS players and an LCK player on it. And it's looking like it does.
Yeah.
It's been very, very good.
So
While we're going through teams, I mean, give Nyarko and I a chance to talk about it too. Team Liquid Challenger is really struggling out of the gate for the first couple of weeks.
I don't
right?
know what's going on. I actually don't know what's going on with that team.
I was hoping you did. So it's
'Cause, like,
definitely-
Because, like, I was thinking, I said it, like, the other day, I'm like, dang, everyone put this team, like, top 4. I don't know what's going on. I mean, I think Bob Jenkins is incredible in top lane.
Jenkins is
Like,
very
this
good.
guy-
I agree. I think
I don't-
Jenkins looks
and
good.
Keel's strong in the jungle with him. So, I don't really know what's going on over there.
I'm in the same kind of thing for Mirage, right? Small sample size,
Yeah, it's
scaling
just
possible.
there's just small little disconnects. I mean, like I said, I think DSG is going to is going to beat them.
Yeah.
But, like, there's just small disconnects. I think they'll be fine. They'll make a comeback. They'll end up middle of the pack because of just the rough start. Because remember, there's only 9 games, so.
Yeah.
So going, like, if, going 0-3, 0-2 is going to be, it's just tough.
Yeah. I also think like playing against 5 challengers like barely counts. So it's like really they got upset by wildcard on day 1, and then it's like who even knows? Because I think Fly challengers are at risk of kind of sweeping every again. It's like you said, it's single round robin.
You see, I think it's week 8. You see week 8. Who's their opponent?
Fly
believe.
challengers.
Yeah.
They play Supernova and Mirage week 8.
There it is. So yeah, they're probably taking a loss. Just one
Somewhere in there, perhaps.
somewhere. We might cheese them with a 1-game win. You never know. But that doesn't count in the series. But it's fine.
It could happen. To keep training through this schedule, it's then Team Liquid Challengers AoE, That game is that's like my game to watch for the
Agreed.
for the week, I think, because
Zamudo versus Jenkins.
yeah, it is. I think it's an interesting matchup with how TLC's been looking. I suspect TLC will lose to DSG as well. It sounds like
Yeah,
you're of that
I believe,
opinion as
yeah.
well, Norm. So it's kind of like AOE is
I
at
actually
risk of
I
going
don't know
0
who
and
wins that
2.
one.
Like AOE's barely played. AOE's at risk of going 0 and 2.
Yeah, what's by the way? Okay, never mind. I understand how the schedule works, but it's so confusing because some teams will only play like one series for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's us. We're grinding every week. Now we got 5. So I don't know.
Yeah. And then
But that one's a toss up actually. Like I don't know.
I know it's also
think
kind
it
of
was
like disaster mode if TLC loses it though. Like assuming they lose
know,
to DSG, they will then be 0 and 4.
You see us down here. Right. But it depends if Zamudo's. I think Zamudo. If Zamudo's locked in, it might be a little scary for Jenkins. They might catch him off guard. Like because Jenkins has been playing. Hold on, let me look at his games. He's been playing like not the stuff I expected him to play at all. He's been playing a lot
While
of
you're taking that
Concentrates.
peek, I'm gonna lightly push back. I don't know. I think that TLC might actually beat DSG. I think that's close.
Oh no,
You
I
guys
mean
are
I hope
assuming, yeah.
I hope so. I don't like I said I don't know who wins that matchup. Like actually, like
Yeah, I think it's a
genuinely.
solid 50-50.
Yeah, I
so-
agree. I think that's what it
yeah.
is. It's a solid 50-50.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a lot from AoE either, so
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't
Jenkins
really
has
know
played
what's-
2 Udyr, 1 Rumble, 1 Aatrox, by the way.
no cannon.
No Kennen, not yet. He's drawn bans on it though. He's definitely
I know.
He's always drawn bans on the Kennen.
His cannon is 1v9. There's just nothing I can say.
It is. It is.
Is that the and then who else?
So let's round things out. Yeah, we got Wildcard DSG.
Wild card actually.
What is happening? Wildcard's the opposite side of the spectrum for me, where it's like small sample size could,
No, I think wild card takes DSG actually.
Okay, really?
Yeah,
I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it. Then.
I think DSG goes 1 and what would that make them 1 and 3? Right? 'Cause
Are we
beat-
assuming they beat TLC?
Right. We're assuming they beat TLC. So
They would
just
be 1
3.
and 2 at that point then,
2.
because they didn't play week 2.
These records are looking
Yeah.
a little weird actually. Now that like this is feeling like the reverse tier list. What's going on?
Yeah, it's
Outside of Fly C, yeah, there's weird trends going on right now. Lit also, I think, is normalizing it a little bit. So,
we'll see.
I mean, we don't know. I mean, I don't know. Lit only played 1 series.
oh
so
yeah,
it's
small sample size
supernova.
could scale. I'm sorry, yeah, we got to go back to that.
True.
Nugget.
well, we'll
Listen,
see.
I will never disrespect Dragoon in the top lane.
True.
I know Alorum's been open with us before about having a rough champion pool into Dragoon as well, so we'll have to see.
Yeah, I will never disrespect him because if he locks in Darius, hold on.
He
'Cause
can
like I said,
too. Darius is viable now, by the way. Like
Yeah,
buffed.
but all I'm saying is Wukong got a buff in 0.3, so watch out for my boy Will. He said he's a 1v9er on that Wukong, so I think we're scaling.
All right.
And Wukong got
Alright.
the buff, so you never know. Hey, teams, there might be a Wukong pick.
And I mean, last match of the week is Supernova Mirage. Are you scaling that fast?
Seeing how Supernova outbid me for half that roster. Let me think. Okay,
Think
so
about that.
it's like
All right, Nyarko,
Okay, so I
what are
think-
you at? What are you at for Supernova Mirage?
Man, I'm right in front of the owner. This is the owner
No,
that, like,
hey,
you
it's
know.
all good. Hey,
yeah,
Nyarko, it's fine.
I think this is probably
You take
2-0.
Supernova? That's fine. You
Yeah,
think it's
for
2-0?
Supernova, yeah.
Okay, here's what I think. If Mirage Alliance wins game 1 and catches them off guard, certain players on their team might get tilted and we could win. I'll let you know what? Come back asking me about this in about a week. We'll see.
Yeah. See in a week.
Once it happens, I'll ask you
Ask
about
you
that.
about what
Yeah.
happened after it's happened. Yeah.
Hey, but like I said, at least I will talk the smack before the game happens.
Okay.
And I will stand on that. It's fine. I think we do beat Supernova, hopefully.
Excited for the Mirage
Sup-
Alliance.
Is
Supernova.
Supernova 2-1? Yeah, I can't wait for them to quote this, put it out of con. It's fine. are they 2-1?
Supernova are 1-1.
1-1.
Yeah, they didn't play week 1, and then
Who
they
did they lose
played.
to?
They lost to Maryville.
Fly?
Maryville. So we'll see. They will play. Yeah, they'll play
I
their
don't know.
third match against you guys this week.
I think if we, what would it be? 1-4, 1-3? If we lose the Supernova?
It depends on how you do against Lit.
That's true. Listen, I don't know. I'm not in the. Hey, I've stepped back way more. In the OQs, I was in every scrim block. I mentally can't do it this time. I trust in the process. So we'll see. Maybe there's some big upsets.
All
never
right.
know.
Looking forward to it. Looking forward to this next week. I think that's where we can close things out. Norm, thanks so much for hopping on to share your
course.
thoughts, man. No, it's been an interesting time between Mirage and the community. So appreciate hearing your perspective on things. Anything you want to shout out? Anything you want to say before we close out this episode?
No, nothing really. No, just thanks for having me. Hopefully this gives Twitter a little bit more insight on how I feel about the situation, because everyone just thinks I'm evil. Like, they think I'm like a Sith Lord over here, and I'm just no. Like, but yeah, that's about it.
All right, good
Thank
stuff.
you guys for
Well,
having me.
thanks everybody for tuning on in. Thanks again to Norm for hopping on with us. We'll be back next week to break down week number 3. But until then, you guys stay tuned to the NACL and stay tuned to Salt Mine. We'll see you next time.
Peace.